The stars above Earth began to disappear one by one as massive alien ships emerged from the darkness of space. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his command station and watched the enemy fleet take position around his home planet. Each alien vessel was larger than any city on Earth, and their hulls glowed with strange blue lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Jake had been preparing for this day his entire military career, but seeing it happen still made his stomach tighten with worry. Lieutenant Amy Carter sat at her communications console and tried to keep her hands steady as she monitored the incoming signals. The alien ships were jamming most of Earth's communication networks, but her equipment was designed to work even under these conditions. She could hear scattered reports from defense stations around the planet as military commanders tried to coordinate their response to the invasion. Amy knew that every person on Earth was counting on them to protect their world from these invaders. Deep underground in a secret laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Elena Rodriguez analyzed the alien transmission that had just arrived. The message was simple and terrifying at the same time. The aliens called themselves the Kethran Empire, and they had sent the same message to 17 other worlds before coming to Earth. Their ultimatum was clear. Humanity had 24 hours to surrender completely or face total destruction. Elena had studied alien languages for most of her career, and she understood exactly what these creatures were planning to do. Admiral Vexathera commanded the Kethran invasion fleet from her flagship called the Void Render. She was a veteran of many conquests and had personally overseen the destruction of dozens of primitive civilizations across the galaxy. As she studied the tactical reports about Earth, she felt the familiar satisfaction that came with an easy victory. The humans had basic rockets, simple nuclear weapons, and their military forces were scattered across hundreds of different nations that could barely cooperate with each other. The Kethran scanning beams swept across Earth's surface and recorded every military installation, every weapons depot, and every government building. Their advanced sensors could detect the electromagnetic signatures of human technology and map out the planet's defenses in perfect detail. To Admiral Vexathara and her officers, Earth looked exactly like every other primitive world they had conquered. The humans appeared to have no idea what was coming and no way to defend themselves against the might of the Empire. What the Kethrans did not know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for over 30 years. Ever since Earth's deep space monitoring stations had first detected alien communications from distant star systems, the planet's greatest scientists and military leaders had been working together on a secret project. They called it Project Prometheus, and it was the most classified program in human history. Only 12 people on the entire planet knew the full scope of what they had built. General Patricia Williams sat in the command center of Project Prometheus and watched the alien fleet position itself around Earth. She had spent the last 20 years of her life preparing for this invasion, and every detail was unfolding exactly as her team had predicted it would. The Kethrans were following their standard siege pattern, just like they had done on every other world they had attacked. They thought they were fighting primitive humans who had no idea what real warfare looked like. Hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean, massive installations that the aliens could not detect were coming online for the first time. Human engineers had spent decades building these facilities in complete secrecy, using technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Kethrans had seen before. The alien scanners were designed to look for conventional weapons and energy signatures that matched known patterns of primitive civilizations. They found exactly what the humans wanted them to find and completely missed the real defenses. Commander Ryan Brooks monitored the alien fleet movements from his position aboard Guardian Station, one of Earth's orbital defense platforms. To the Kethrans, his station looked like a simple research facility with basic life support systems and primitive communication equipment. They had no idea that Guardian Station was actually one of the most advanced weapons platforms ever constructed by human hands. Ryan and his crew had been training for this battle their entire careers, and they were ready to show these aliens what humanity was really capable of. The Kethran Empire had built their reputation on overwhelming force and superior technology. Their biomechanical warships were powered by living neural networks that could process information faster than any computer. Their weapons could melt entire continents, and their soldiers were genetically engineered for combat in any environment. For over 1,000 years, no species had been able to stand against them in battle. Every world they had encountered had either surrendered immediately or been destroyed within hours of their arrival. As the alien ultimatum timer counted down toward zero, people across Earth gathered around their television screens and communication devices to hear what their leaders would say. Most civilians had no idea that their planet had been preparing for this invasion for decades. They saw the massive alien ships in the sky and felt the same terror that 17 other civilizations had experienced before them. But deep in secret bunkers around the world, military commanders were making final preparations for a battle that would change the course of galactic history forever. Dr. Marcus Chen activated the quantum communication network that connected every human military installation across the solar system. The Kethrans had dismissed this network as primitive electromagnetic technology, but it was actually based on quantum entanglement principles that allowed instantaneous communication across any distance. In less than a microsecond, every commander from Earth to the asteroid belt received the same message. Project Prometheus was now active and humanity was about to reveal its true nature to the galaxy. Admiral Vexathera reviewed the tactical analysis of Earth's defenses and allowed herself to feel amused by what she saw. The humans had scattered their military forces across their planet in hundreds of small groups that could barely communicate with each other. Their most powerful weapons were primitive nuclear devices that would be useless against Kethran bioarmor. Their fastest spaceships moved at speeds that Kethran fighters could easily outrun, and their largest warships were smaller than the cargo bays on her invasion fleet. The intelligence reports showed that Earth's inhabitants were divided into competing nations that had been fighting wars against each other for thousands of years. They used different languages, different currencies, and different political systems that made cooperation almost impossible. Their technology was based on burning chemical fuels and splitting atoms, which the Kethrans considered to be the mark of a barely civilized species. Everything about these humans suggested that they would be even easier to conquer than the last 3 worlds the Empire had claimed. Commander Ryan Brooks received reports from defense stations around Earth and carefully maintained the appearance of panic and confusion that the Kethrans expected to see. His communications with other military commanders were deliberately inefficient and filled with the kind of bureaucratic delays that would make the aliens believe humanity was incapable of mounting an organized defense. Every message was designed to reinforce the impression that Earth's forces were primitive, divided, and helpless against the invasion fleet. The Kethran scanning systems detected exactly what the humans wanted them to find. Earth's military bases were equipped with outdated radar systems and chemical-powered missiles that posed no threat to advanced alien technology. Their nuclear submarines moved slowly through the oceans using noisy propulsion systems that could be tracked from orbit. Their fighter jets burned fossil fuels and could barely reach the edge of their own atmosphere. To the alien observers, humanity looked like a species that had barely learned to leave their home planet. General Patricia Williams monitored the alien reconnaissance activities from her command center and smiled as each Kethran probe fell for the deception that her team had spent decades perfecting. The installations that the aliens were cataloging as military targets were actually empty decoys filled with obsolete equipment and dummy personnel. The real human defenses were hidden in locations that Kethran sensors could not detect, using technology that the Empire had never encountered before. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, massive construction projects that had taken 20 years to complete remained completely invisible to alien detection systems. Human engineers had developed stealth technology that could hide entire cities from the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. The Kethrans were looking for metal structures and electromagnetic signatures, but the real human facilities were built using materials and energy sources that did not exist in their databases of known civilizations. Lieutenant Amy Carter continued to broadcast false information about Earth's defensive capabilities while secretly coordinating the activation of systems that the aliens could not imagine. Her communication equipment appeared to be based on primitive radio technology, but it was actually using quantum entanglement to maintain instantaneous contact with human forces throughout the solar system. Every fake distress call and simulated equipment failure was part of a carefully orchestrated plan to make the Kethrans overconfident. The Kethran invasion fleet moved into standard siege formation around Earth just as human strategists had predicted they would. Admiral Vexathara positioned her most powerful warships at the optimal distance to bombard the planet's surface while keeping her troop transport safely behind the main battle line. Her bioplasma cannons charged with enough energy to melt continents, and her boarding pods filled with genetically enhanced soldiers who had never lost a battle. Everything was proceeding exactly according to the Empire's proven conquest protocols. Dr. Elena Rodriguez analyzed the alien formation and confirmed that the Kethrans were following the same tactical patterns they had used on 17 previous worlds. Their commanders were so confident in their superiority that they were not even bothering to adapt their strategy to account for potential surprises. The Empire had grown arrogant after centuries of easy victories, and they expected Earth to fall within hours, just like every other planet they had attacked. What the Kethrans did not understand was that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history surviving on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them. Earth was what galactic biologists called a death world, where natural disasters, dangerous weather, and deadly creatures had forced humanity to become the most adaptable and resourceful species in the galaxy. Every human alive was descended from survivors who had overcome impossible odds through intelligence, cooperation, and pure stubborn determination. The alien scouts reported that human cities were filled with panic as civilians evacuated to underground shelters. The Kethrans interpreted this as evidence of primitive fear and disorganization, but they failed to recognize that humanity was actually implementing evacuation procedures that had been planned and rehearsed for decades. Every person on Earth knew exactly where to go and what to do when the invasion began. The apparent chaos was actually a precisely coordinated operation to protect innocent lives while military forces prepared for battle. As the 24-hour ultimatum approached its deadline, Admiral Vexthara prepared to broadcast the final surrender demand to Earth's governments. She expected the humans to capitulate immediately when they realized the hopelessness of their situation. Every other species had chosen submission over extinction when faced with the full might of the Kethran Empire. The Admiral had no reason to believe that these primitive creatures would be any different from all the others who had fallen before her fleet. The 24-hour deadline expired, and Admiral Vexithara waited for Earth's government to broadcast their surrender. Instead, she received a simple message transmitted on all frequencies in perfect Kethran language that said only 3 words: "Come and take it." The Admiral felt a moment of surprise at the defiance, but quickly dismissed it as the final desperate gesture of a doomed species. She gave the order for her bioplasma cannons to begin charging, and for the invasion to commence immediately. That was when Dr. Marcus Chen activated the first phase of Project Prometheus, and everything the Kethrans thought they knew about humanity changed forever. The quantum communication network that the aliens had dismissed as primitive electromagnetic signals suddenly revealed its true nature. In less than 1 microsecond, every human military installation in the solar system received the same message with perfect clarity and 0 delay. The message was simple: execute Directive 7, show them what we really are. Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Turner was piloting what appeared to be a standard Earth interceptor when she received the activation signal. Her fighter had been catalogued by Kethran sensors as a primitive chemical-powered spacecraft that could barely reach orbital velocity. When she engaged her ship's real propulsion system, the vessel suddenly accelerated to 12% of light speed using gravitic manipulation technology that the Empire had never encountered. Her fighter moved through space like a bullet through water, while the alien sensors struggled to track something that should have been impossible. Across Earth's solar system, installations that had been disguised as mining operations, research stations, and abandoned facilities suddenly revealed their true purpose. The asteroid belt that the Kethrans had barely bothered to scan was actually filled with massive weapons platforms that had been built inside hollowed-out rocks. The lunar bases that appeared to be simple scientific outposts were actually advanced, tactical command centers capable of coordinating the defense of the entire solar system. General Patricia Williams watched as decades of careful preparation finally paid off. The human fleet that emerged from stealth was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Ships that had been disguised as space debris and derelict satellites suddenly activated cloaking systems that made them completely invisible to Kethran sensors. Weapons platforms that had been hidden inside apparently empty asteroid shells began charging energy collectors that could harness the power of stars themselves. The first Kethran bioplasma cannon fired at Earth's surface, and its devastating energy beam was intercepted by a barrier that should not have existed. Human scientists had developed shield technology that could redirect any form of energy attack back toward its source with twice the original power. The alien weapon that was designed to melt continents instead carved a massive hole through the hull of the Kethran flagship as its own energy was turned against. Captain Jake Morrison revealed his true role as a Project Prometheus field commander and began coordinating the human counterattack. His command station that had appeared to be a simple orbital platform was actually the nerve center of the most sophisticated military operation in galactic history. Every human ship, every weapon, and every tactical system was connected through quantum networks that allowed perfect coordination across impossible distances. The Kethran sensors began reporting readings that their computers could not process. Human vessels were moving at velocities that violated the known laws of physics. Their energy signatures were off the charts, and their weapon systems were using technology that exceeded anything in the Empire's databases. Ships that should have taken hours to travel between planets were covering the same distances in minutes using propulsion methods that seemed to bend space and time itself. Admiral Vexithara watched her tactical displays in growing horror as her invasion fleet began taking casualties at an impossible rate. Kethran warships that had conquered dozens of star systems were being destroyed by human fighters that were 1/100th their size. The bioneural networks that controlled her fleet's weapons were being overwhelmed by cyber warfare programs that infected their living computers and turned their own systems against them. Major Kevin Foster commanded a squadron of gravity manipulation fighters that could create localized black holes and temporal distortions around enemy targets. His ships could phase in and out of normal spacetime, making them impossible to hit with conventional weapons. The Kethran gunners found themselves shooting at empty space where human fighters had been only moments before. Their targeting systems could not track enemies that existed partially outside of normal reality. The alien boarding pods that had been launched to capture Earth's orbital stations found themselves trapped in spatial loops that prevented them from reaching their targets. Human dimensional engineers had learned to manipulate the fabric of space itself, creating maze-like distortions that could redirect enemy forces into infinite recursive paths. Kethran soldiers who expected to board human facilities instead found themselves floating helplessly in twisted regions, where the normal rules of three-dimensional space no longer applied. For the first time in over 1,000 years of galactic conquest, the Kethran Empire faced an enemy that was not just their equal, but their clear superior in every aspect of warfare. Human technology made their biomechanical ships look like primitive sailing vessels trying to fight modern warships. Their tactics and strategies were being countered by opponents who seemed to anticipate every move before it was made. The species they had expected to crush in hours was systematically dismantling their entire invasion fleet with terrifying efficiency. The Kethran Empire's most feared weapon was a massive bioship called a planet cracker that could split worlds in half with concentrated gravitational waves. Admiral Vexithara ordered her fleet's planet cracker to target Earth's core and end this impossible battle with one devastating attack. The enormous vessel began charging its primary weapon, while smaller Kethran ships provided protective cover around it. Every alien crew member believed that this ultimate weapon would finally break human resistance and restore the Empire's dominance. Captain Jake Morrison detected the planet cracker's energy buildup and calmly activated humanity's most closely guarded secret. Hidden within Earth's moon was a weapon that human scientists called the Stellar Lance, a device that could channel and focus the entire energy output of the sun into a single directed beam. The weapon had taken 15 years to build and had never been tested at full power, but the engineers who designed it were confident that it could destroy anything the galaxy had ever produced. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the alien fleet movements and calculated the optimal firing solution for the Stellar Lance. The planet cracker was positioned exactly where human strategics planning had predicted it would be, surrounded by escort vessels in a defensive formation that actually made them easier targets. The aliens had no idea that their most powerful weapon was about to become the focal point for their complete destruction. When the Stellar Lance fired, it created a beam of pure solar energy that crossed the distance between Earth and the Kethran fleet in less than 8 seconds. The concentrated power of an entire star struck the planet cracker and instantly vaporized the massive bioship along with every escort vessel within a 50-kilometer radius. The remaining alien fleet watched in stunned silence as their ultimate weapon simply ceased to exist, leaving nothing behind except a cloud of superheated plasma. Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Turner led her fighter squadron in a coordinated assault on the Kethrin command ships, while the enemy fleet was still reeling from the destruction of their planet cracker. Her pilots used temporal manipulation technology to slow down time around their targets, making the alien vessels appear to move in slow motion while human fighters operated at normal speed. Kethrin gunners found themselves unable to track or engage enemies who seemed to exist in an accelerated time frame. The Human Cyber Warfare Division launched their most devastating attack against the Kethrin bioneural networks. Commander Ryan Brooks coordinated teams of digital specialists who had developed computer viruses specifically designed to target living neural tissue. The alien ships began turning on each other as their biomechanical control systems were infected with programs that rewrote their basic command protocols and made them identify other Kethrin vessels as hostile targets. Major Kevin Foster's gravity manipulation squadron demonstrated the true extent of human technological advancement by creating artificial wormholes that transported Kethrin ships directly into the heart of nearby stars. The aliens watched helplessly as dozens of their most powerful warships simply disappeared from normal space and reappeared inside stellar cores where they were instantly consumed by nuclear fire. Human scientists had learned to treat the fabric of spacetime itself as a weapon that could be wielded with surgical precision. Admiral Vex Thara tried desperately to coordinate a retreat but discovered that her fleet was surrounded by human forces that had emerged from concealment throughout the solar system. Weapons platforms hidden in the asteroid belt began firing quantum disruptor beams that could erase matter from existence at the subatomic level. Kethrin ships that were struck by these weapons simply vanished as if they had never existed, leaving their crews with no time to send distress signals or escape pods. The Human Temporal Weapons Division activated devices that could accelerate the aging process of enemy targets by millions of years in just seconds. Kethrin bioships that had been grown and cultivated over centuries suddenly withered and died as their living hulls experienced rapid decay. The aliens watched in horror as their vessels literally crumbled to dust around them, while human fighters continued their relentless assault on the disintegrating fleet. General Patricia Williams observed the battle from her command center and felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness as the Kethrin invasion fleet was systematically destroyed. She took no pleasure in the deaths of sentient beings, but she knew that this demonstration of human military power would prevent future invasions and save countless lives throughout the galaxy. The Empire needed to learn that some species were too dangerous to conquer, and Earth was definitely one of them. The few remaining Kethrin ships attempted to escape by jumping to hyperspace but found that human interdiction fields had sealed off every possible escape route. Dr. Marcus Chen had deployed quantum locks that prevented faster-than-light travel within the entire solar system. The surviving aliens were trapped in normal space with no way to flee and no hope of receiving reinforcements from their distant empire. As the battle entered its final phase, human forces began using dimensional weapons that could phase targets partially out of reality. Kethrin survivors found themselves existing in a strange state between dimensions, where they could see and hear, but could not interact with the physical universe. These weapons allowed humans to capture enemy personnel for interrogation, while ensuring that they posed no further threat to Earth or its defenders. In less than 4 minutes, the entire Kethrin invasion fleet had been either destroyed or disabled by human forces that had revealed technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Vex Thara found herself alone on the bridge of her crippled flagship as her bio-neural networks failed around her and her crew abandoned their posts in panic. The mighty empire that had conquered 17 star systems had been completely defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive barbarians. General Patricia Williams opened a direct communication channel to the surviving Kethrin commander and spoke in perfect alien language that revealed humanity's deep knowledge of Empire culture and history. She explained calmly that Earth had been monitoring Kethrin activities for over 30 years and had prepared specifically for this invasion. The Empire's biggest mistake was assuming that a species capable of surviving on a death world for millions of years would be easy to conquer. Dr. Elena Rodriguez began broadcasting on all Kethrin communication frequencies to ensure that news of the fleet's defeat would reach every corner of the Empire. Her message was simple and direct. Humanity knew about the 17 conquered worlds and would not tolerate the continued oppression of innocent civilizations. Earth was declaring war not on the Kethran people, but on their empire's policy of galactic conquest and slavery. Captain Jake Morrison received new orders from Earth's high command as human fleets that had been hidden throughout the solar system prepared for their next mission. The ships that had destroyed the invasion force were just the first wave of humanity's military response. Hidden shipyards on the far side of the moon had been producing advanced warships for decades, and now those vessels were ready to carry the fight directly to Kethran territory. Admiral Vexthera was taken aboard a human vessel as a prisoner of war, and found herself face to face with beings who showed her both the wreckage of her fleet and detailed intelligence files about every world the Empire had conquered. The humans knew the names of every enslaved species, the location of every prison planet, and the identity of every Kethran commander who had participated in the genocidal campaigns. They had been preparing not just to defend Earth, but to liberate the galaxy. Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Turner led the first human expeditionary force as it departed Earth's solar system, using faster-than-light drives that made Kethran hyperspace technology look primitive by comparison. Her mission was to reach the nearest enslaved world and begin evacuation operations, while heavier human warships dealt with any remaining Empire forces. The liberation of 17 star systems would be the largest military operation in galactic history. The surviving Kethran ships were escorted to a human facility, where their crews were separated into two groups: those who had participated in war crimes against civilian populations, and those who had served only in military roles. Dr. Marcus Chen explained that humanity believed in justice rather than revenge, and that Empire soldiers who had not committed atrocities would be treated according to galactic conventions for prisoners of war. News of the Kethran defeat spread throughout the galaxy, faster than anyone had expected, as human quantum communication networks reached civilizations that the Empire had never contacted. Species that had lived in terror of eventual conquest learned that the seemingly unstoppable Kethrans had been completely destroyed by a world they had never heard of. For the first time in over 1,000 years, hope began to replace fear in the hearts of countless sentient beings. Major Kevin Foster commanded the human task force that liberated the first Kethran slave world just 18 hours after the invasion fleet's destruction. The rescued populations could barely believe that their nightmare was finally over, as human ships arrived with medical supplies, food, and transportation off the prison planets where they had suffered for generations. Many of the freed aliens had never seen their homeworlds and wept with joy at the possibility of returning. Home Commander Ryan Brooks established the first human diplomatic mission to the Galactic Core, where representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss the formation of a new interstellar alliance. Earth's proposal was simple. Any civilization that renounced conquest and agreed to protect the rights of sentient beings would be welcome to join a federation dedicated to peaceful cooperation and mutual defense against future threats. The Kethran Empire's government collapsed within weeks as their military commanders realized that they could not fight an enemy whose technology was centuries ahead of their own. Many Kethran worlds declared independence from the Empire and requested human protection, while they transitioned to peaceful democratic governments. The species that had once terrorized the galaxy began the long process of making amends for the suffering they had caused. General Patricia Williams addressed the newly formed Galactic Council and explained humanity's philosophy of warfare. Earth fought not for territory or resources, but to protect those who could not protect themselves. Humans had learned through millions of years of evolution that survival required cooperation and mutual aid, and they intended to extend those principles to the entire galaxy. The species that had clawed its way to the top of evolution on a death world was now offering its protection to civilizations throughout the stars.